Now we'll hear from Timothy a little bit about what was going on when Paul had disappeared. They're arraigning him at midday. At midday, they'll make the complaint official. It was one of Erastus's personal servants, acting now as a crier, who alerted us to the crisis. We tumbled from Aquila's shop into a cold, cold morning. Arraigning who? We blew clouds with our talking. Paul, at midday, in the forum. Why? What charge? The crier didn't know. Who's making the charge? That the crier did know. Sosthenes, on behalf of the synagogue. What do they want? The crier didn't know. What punishment do they want? This was Prisca, wild-eyed. To beat him again? The crier shrugged. To kill him this time. The crier looked distressed. Where is he now? The crier didn't know. Prisca wailed, Who does know? Erastus, perhaps? Ask Erastus? The poor fellow before us was only a servant who got the news from Erastus, and this is all that Erastus told him. I'll go, I said. Prisca's eyes had darkened, making her face so small, her bones so crushable. I'll try to find Erastus. Immediately, I took to my heels and ran. If I lost breath, I can't recall it. My feet were silver. I ran to Erastus's house. He wasn't there. To his offices next. He wasn't there either, but a scribe told me he'd gone to the Roman proconsul Gallio, seeking an audience before the arraignment should take place. Erastus thought he might use his civil influence to persuade Gallio not even to hear the charges at all. God bless Erastus. On the chance he was awaiting audience among the members of the city council, I sprinted south through the forum, past the bema, through the pillars of the southern portico, to the door of the council chamber itself. Gallio had established formal meeting rooms hard by the chamber, and Erastus was well recognized by those who administered the city. Yes, several of the magistrates had seen him earlier, but no, they couldn't say where he was. Excuse me. Nor were they interested in pursuing the matter further. Paul of what? Tarsus? Never heard of him. Nor had they heard of the morning's formal charges. The synagogue. Who knows what they do in that synagogue? No, it'll do no good to try the proconsul's residence. They've already shut the doors to the public. Sorry, can't help you. Be patient. Wait till Gallio takes his judgment seat and all will be known. Now I was breathless. That fruitless exchange was more exhausting than hard running. I walked west of the portico, panting as after a race, tasting salt in my mouth. Who was holding Paul? Where should I look? There was a prison beneath the proconsul's house. If I'd been traveling, if I'd been back in Thessalonica, I could not have felt farther from Paul than I did then. I wouldn't have felt so helpless. Then, by the merest accident, I saw Erastus leaving a tavern where noble Romans dip sweetbreads in wine in the morning. Erastus, I cried, Erastus! He raised a face all full of tragedy and started to walk in my direction. What did the proconsul say? Will he cancel the arraignment? The man walked right past me into the southern portico, and I kept going, distracted, heavy with dejection. I fell in step beside him. We went 200 paces all the way to the end of the portico. Then he turned, and we retraced the same route back. Erastus was talking, as much to himself as to me. He had not seen the proconsul, no, not seen Gallio at all. Even though he had sent no servant in his stead, even though he had gone in his own person to make request for an audience, they, all of them servants themselves, would not so much as carry his name to the proconsul. Erastus hadn't the bloodline. Erastus was nobody, and they dealt with him still as a slave. He slapped his thigh as we walked. Impotent. His shaven lip glistened with sweat. What had his reputation earned him? Well, he'd spent the entire last hour sitting in the tavern with a lisping factotum, an undersecretary who took his money for the food, but who refused his suit. There would be an arraignment, Erastus said, nearly in tears. And once that proceeding began, no one, surely not the impotent Erastus, could intervene. Gallio would hear arraignments. Gallio would judge. Gallio would utter punishment. Paul might be granted the right to speak on his own behalf. But how? Erastus wailed, throwing his hands in the air. How can Paul prepare a decent defense if he doesn't know the accusations made in his absence? I said, Erastus, where is he? Where is Paul? He stopped walking. In a guest room, he said. Suddenly he was giggling. Oh my. Erastus began scraping his face with his fingernails, giggling still. In a guest room, he howled. Then he broke into a sobbing. I'm sorry, it isn't funny, it's horrible. He said, looking at me, Paul's locked in the synagogue in one of the rooms prepared for weary travelers. But I knew that room. I'd slept in it myself. Paul was not in Roman custody. He was in a familiar place. All at once, he seemed so close to me. Can we see him? I said, let's go talk to him. Little brother, I'm sorry, we can't. Can't? Why not? They're angry at you. At me? Erastus, at me? At Jews who rejected them and went after Paul. That's nothing new, I cried. Ever since Crispus left, they've been angry. But something else is new. What? Erastus shook his woeful head. Insult, he said. 2 days ago, the manager of your synagogue, Sosthenes, was humiliated by one of Paul's people, a woman. He says that she commanded 8 slaves to beat him before 1,000 people in the city streets. He says the woman was our little Prisca. Prisca, I gasped. Erastus turned fully toward me, his shoulders and eyebrows raised in a grievous appeal. I don't believe it, he sobbed. Prisca couldn't hit anyone. It's a lie. It's a damnable lie. Prisca, I whispered. So that's why you speak of beatings and killings. That's why your eyes are dark with terror. Don't worry, Timothy, Erastus said, reaching to embrace me. They won't punish little Prisca. It's Paul they're after. Erastus, listen, I said, seizing his hands before they seized me. The woman with 8 slaves is Phoebe of Cenchreae. Do you know her? I know her. If anyone attacked 2 days ago, it wasn't Sosthenes. It was Prisca. If anyone was attacked 2 days ago, it wasn't Sosthenes. It was Prisca herself. Erastus's face went slack at the news. It's happened before. It is following us, I said, panting again, overwhelmed by the evil wherever we went in the world. Maybe the race would never be won. Paul was attacked in my hometown and beaten so bad we thought he was dead. He was beaten in Philippi. He was imprisoned in Philippi. They tried to beat him in Thessalonica. They tried to beat him in Berea. Oh, what a child I was. I wanted to cry for Paul. I wanted to weep for my own helplessness. I wanted the sweetness of plain rage. I wanted to throw stones at the synagogue. Erastus, I said, still holding his hands in mine. Erastus, can you, I said, casting about for a word, an act, a wall to stop things, a wall against my anger and our enemies. Erastus, can we fill the marketplace? When they arraign Paul, can we crowd the forum with people? Our people, yes, but others too. Corinthians, servants, sailors, strangers, anyone, everyone, 1,000 times more than Sosthenes has friends. Can we do that? Is there a way to do that? Erastus didn't ask why. What would I have answered? That I want a wall? Instead, the big man lifted up our hands till we formed a tent together under which he shuffled his feet. He danced. Among the pillars of the southern portico, Erastus began to lead me in a silly skipping dance. "Little brother, prophet of God," he announced, "you've given me back my powers again." "Yes," he bellowed, "we can do that." He let me go and clapped his hands and turned to the first liveried slave who passed by. "Here, come here," he shouted. "Whose man are you?" The slave stopped and said, "I belong to Aeneas." "Good. I'll pay Aeneas for your time and you for your service. I'm Erastus, manager of Corinthian markets. Do this for me. Run among the shops announcing that they must, every one of them, cease trading at noon today. By my express and sudden command, all commerce shall be halted for the pleasure of the people. All commerce, that is, except that of bakeries. For bread I shall buy myself, which bread I shall distribute in the forum at midday. Announce that there will be bread in the forum at the middle of the day."